and welcome to Ask GMBN Tech, the show where we get to answer your questions, and all you have to do is use hashtag AskGMBNTech down in the comments of any of our videos so that we can find it and answer it on a show like this. You have the first question, I believe.
Yeah, I do. Well, hopefully I've got the answer as well. But we'll find out now. So, great question here from John Smith, 4005. He says, would beeswax work for waxing my chain? Now, I like it.
Interesting.
Yeah, like...
That sounds like a hack.
Well, yeah, I did quite a bit of research, to be fair. Probably far too much for a Sunday. And yeah, like, it's a really novel idea. And initially I was kind of like, well, that's just silly. But the short answer is that it's not completely wild. There's some validity to it because it is a wax.
Yeah.
It's just more how you get that wax on. So, wax lubes. We've talked about them a little bit on the show.
A little bit.
Yeah, and on EMBN as well. Now, they work differently. Now, how? So you've got wet lubes and dry lubes or dry conditions, and they all effectively sort of stay wet. Whereas wax lubes, you're putting them on in an emulsion or in sort of suspension, or you're putting them on molten, and then the wax itself then kind of pulls around your rollers and your pins, and it means that it then returns back to its solid state. So opposed to having kind of like a slide layer that's made up of a liquid, it's actually a solid. So the way it works and the way it can be more efficient is because it slides differently. So there's quite a lot of science in there. So back to bees. Yeah, beeswax isn't what's in PTs and other wax-based chain lubes, and that's because, well, you need more than just the beeswax in there. You need lots of other additives in there, and they boost, its sort of staying power, because the beeswax is, well, it's not going to stay on as long because it's just beeswax. And there's also some other additives that sort of are rust inhibitors and stuff like that. So yeah, I have seen homemade mixes online using beeswax.
Really?
But it's a lot of work, and PEs isn't that expensive. So yeah, good idea, but yeah, go with the branded.
Is it the same, but what's the wax that is in the little, roadies dipping their chains in hot wax and bringing that out? Do you know what sort of wax that is?
Yes, that's a brand. Well, I think one brand kind of like did it really, really well. That's Silka. They've been really good at pushing all the science behind why wax lube and molten wax works really, really well. But the drip-on lubes, and Silk have a drip-on lube as well, I don't think they use it more for mountain biking. It's really similar to the PT stuff, whereby it's in emulsion, you have to shake it a lot before you apply it. You apply quite a lot, you let it to dry, mostly overnight, at least in the UK, where it's not that warm here, where if you live somewhere warm and dry, it can dry really quickly. And effectively the wax just stays on until particles drop off. So it's really good when it's on there. So yeah, the sort of go on wet makes it a lot quicker than having to have like a crock pot and doing all the wax process, because that's just a faff and flammable.
My question is from Weather Triple Original, who said, I am currently riding a Commencal 29 Hardtail with 150 mils of travel up the front with rock shocks, and I'm looking to upgrade to a fully. Now, he's living in the Netherlands, and he says, okay, it's as flat as a pancake, probably only need 100 mils of travel, but he wants a proper trail bike with more travel so he can go to the bike park. And his question is 150 mil hardtail almost the same as a 130 fully, or maybe like a 140? It's a valid question, but it's such a complex one to answer because it really depends. So if you love the geometry of your hardtail Commencal and you like having that 150 mil travel up front, but you just want a little bit of spring in the back, then go for something that has rear suspension, but try and match the geometry and try and keep it 150 up front. So geometry, you can often check on websites like geometrygeeks.bike, where you can plug in things like Commencal 29 hardtail and get your size up, and it will tell you all of your geometry, and then you can plug in some other bikes that you like the look of. Maybe you're saying the Commencal Tempo or a Santa Cruz hardtail, or maybe a Canyon Spectral, something like that. Put them all in, and it gives you an idea of what the geometry is like. Now, if the geometry suited you and all you want is a little bit of cush in the back, then just try and find something with a similar geometry. And yes, I think a 120 rear can absolutely work in a bike park, can it? But yeah, because if you go for 150, it can be a little bit sludgy if you're not spending a lot of time in the bike park, in my opinion. But there are a lot of trail bikes that really span this travel now, isn't there? There's trail bikes that are 120 in the rear, there's trail bikes that are 150 in the rear, and they're all under the trail umbrella, but they are kind of trying to cater for different people. There's the 120mm rear trail riders who hit the single track, and there's the 150mm rear trail riders that hit the bike parks. So you're going to have to make a bit of a decision as to where you fit in that little bracket.
I guess we need to touch on trail centres and bike parks, because sometimes they're used interchangeably in terms of, we say a bike park and we mean a trail centre, and vice versa. Now, the bike industry, from its standards, and there are standards, it's the catchily titled ASTM F2043-13. Now, it is a bit wordy, but lots of brands are using it, and it's to categorise how their bikes are used. So if you're heading to a bike park, some of the shorter travel trail bikes are short travel trail bikes, or they might be longer travel, but they're still a trail bike, so they're not designed for regular, harsher use at a bike park. So if you're heading to a bike park, then yeah, just consider that potentially you might need to make your 150 hardtail a little bit more cross-country, maybe some lighter tyres, and then you could get a dedicated park bike just for being a park rat. But if you're saying bike park and you just mean like a trail centre where there's some little jumps, then you should be okay, but just do check that standard. It's a wordy one, but loads of brands are sticking to it now. Okay, good question here from Benji Fletcher. Good question here. How do I know if I've bought the wrong size bike?
How, indeed.
How? Yeah, okay, it's a really, really good question, and we're going to skim over the topic here and try and be quite snappy because it is a huge topic. So ergonomics is the kind of scientific study of, well, human and machine. And it's huge. People have doctorates in it. So yeah, bike fit is defined as sort of like two really important and interconnected things, which is how the bike handles and your position on the bike. And those kind of all interact in different ways. So if you're riding like DH and you're riding bike park and you've got a bike that's the wrong sized, it's not going to be the end of the world. There's going to be some dynamic ride issues, but essentially it'll probably be all right. If your bike's too big, actually it might be all right at the bike park. However, if you're doing cross country or you're doing really long rides, the wrong size bike can put you in some really long-term physiological injuries or long-term issues. So it is really important. Okay. Also, we've had some radical change in geometry. So yeah, there was a kind of a window, I guess, about 2 to maybe 4 years where if you bought the one bike, you were always a medium in loads of brands, and then you didn't buy a bike for that sort of period of time, about 3 years, say, and you bought a medium again, you could be on the wrong size bike. I stayed the same height, but I was always on a medium, now I'm on a small. So how do we get into this little pickle? Well, I mean, it's tricky, but again, we'll try and keep it really brief. Bike sizes were based on road bikes. And again, bear with me, I know that's a bit dull, but essentially when you had a seat tube height, which was your 18-inch or 16-inch or 15-inch, that also meant that the top tube was basically the same. They were square. And ever since like Cunningham and Joe Murray started to do like sloping top tubes, and then we had other leaps forwards with Gary Fisher making top tubes much longer and stems getting a little bit shorter. And then the throttle was really dropped when Pole and Mondraker fitted zero stems and ultra long top tubes and really sort of like slammed seat positions. It meant that the bike fit check of having crotch clearance, which would then indicate how long a top tube was, all just sort of went out the window. So you could get yourself into a real pickle. So if you've not bought a bike in a while, yeah, the sizing that you used to have will probably be different.
I'm glad you're keeping this brief.
Oh, well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the biggie is it's okay though. Now, loads of bike brands have got really good fitting tools online. So Canyon, Propane, they've got fantastic tools online. So you can kind of look at them and go, okay, I'm this high, and don't do it with shoes on, do it without shoes on in terms of how tall you are. Don't try and trick it. And they will give you a really good idea of what you are. Of course, the sort of like the normal route to consumers, so the obeyers that go through bike shops, have also got the advantage that they're in a bike shop, so you could sit on the bike and see. But yeah, if you've got a bike already, it's probably time to break the tape measure out and measure it up. So have a look at top tube length, because that's probably the biggie that you can't change. Seat posts you could move around quite a lot, but you can't really make the front end of the bike a lot longer. It is sort of confusing and it is a deep world, but Ergon have got a really cool tool. They've got a bike fit in a box, so you can get that. I think it's under 30 quid, and you've got all the tools, literally tape measure, plumb bob, spirit level, to measure up your bike and measure you up so you can fit onto it. I mean, if you do know the geometry of the bike that you like, there's tools like Bike Insights and Geometry Geek, which you can compare like for like bikes. I mean, I've done it on an older bike, an older hardtail that I really like, with a modern bike. And again, I've switched frame sizes. I've gone from a medium, or a 17 inch as it was called back in the day, to now a small. So bike geometry has really changed. And rightly so, it is really important. So it does take time. There's no short answer. So yeah, just dive in. Let us know if you've got any more comments about bike fit, because it's a wonderful topic. So just to cut back, because I realised that I didn't actually directly answer the question of how do I know I'm on the wrong size bike. And to a degree, without more information from you, it's something that we can't answer. But with all the tools that we've hopefully given you, you'll be able to understand that it's less knowing that if you're on the wrong size bike, and more understanding how you fit the bike, but the bike you've got and the bikes that you get in the future for, you know, your specific riding. So if you're riding downhill, you're riding park, or you're riding cross country, or you're going bike packing, they're all going to have different attributes. So yeah, find out about how you fit onto the bike.
So, Laurentius Trilura says, my local trails are infused with rock gardens, and the best solution I found is to run 2.3 or bigger on 25 to 30 mil rims, because curbing seems to be the problem. Why don't manufacturers build in a lip like they do on car tyres? Interesting. There is some inventions out there, obviously, to help you with curbing. So there's two things I'm getting here, is that you might split your sidewall. So obviously you can look into burlier tyres, often downhill casing or double down, or just reinforce sidewalls to help with not getting tears on the side of the tyres. And also there's the other thing of just hitting rocks. You say it's your trails are infused with rocks, so you might be hitting the rim, effectively bottoming out your tyre. So maybe more tyre pressure might help you in that situation. Obviously a tyre insert won't go amiss, because that will offer a little buffer between your tyre and your rim, hopefully stop you getting snake bites or pinch punches. And also there are some wheel manufacturers out there that are really moving towards wider beads. So the bead on either side of the rim, the wider they are, the less sharp they are, and the less likely they are to break or snake bite your tyres when your tyre bottoms out. And I really swear by a good combination of all of those three things: pressure, good tyres, and good rim beads as well. And that should probably sort you out, and you won't need this fancy car tyre bead rim thing, which I'm unaware of.
Yeah, no, they're good. They're out there to protect your rims.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my question from Payne Rides Bikes, maybe it's Rich Payne, says, I have a Shimano D-wall brake caliper that's been leaking oil and contaminating pads. I've got a spare Magura caliper that he cracked the lever body of a long time ago, and he's thinking about replacing it with this. And the question is, which brake fluid does he go for? Does he go for the Shimano, or does he go for the Magura Blue Blood? Good question, but also what you're trying to create here is two different brands together that weren't designed to go together. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about Shigura, which is getting the best of both worlds by mixing Shimano and Magura together, but technically, they, depending on what sort of brand you've got, I'm not sure, they might not actually work. You can't just put two together because the lever rates and it's designed to work and push a certain amount of fluid through to the calipers and then actuate them in a certain rate as well. And if the rates are off, then obviously your brakes are going to be off too. And then you've got the question of what do you use, the Shimano or the Magura? It's a very good question. My advice would be to try and work out why is your Dior brake caliper leaking in the first place. Is that something that we can fix? You know, take those pads out, check out the caliper. Is there something wrong with the pistons? Has it cracked potentially? Maybe there's something we can fix in there before you start mix matching brands. What do you reckon, Owen?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I've seen it done. I mean, there's a couple of like legendary mechanics out there that are doing it. Should you do it? Is it going to void your warranty? Oh, I can guarantee that it will void your warranty. Whether it works, yeah, could do. Void your warranty? Definitely. Would I want to kind of have a voided warranty on a brake? Not really.
No, try and fix the Shimano ones first. Anyway, if you've got any burning questions right now, then use hashtag Ask GMBN Tech down in the comments below right now, and we'll try and pick it up on the next show. Thanks for watching.